Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to session 10 on our series on conscious self management and how to improve mindfulness in your life, how to become more conscious in your life. Today, we're going to be covering mindfulness and leadership. And leadership doesn't have to necessarily just apply to organizational leadership, but you could be leader within your family, your cell group, your colleagues, team supervisor. You can be leader in many different contexts. And I guess the first question is, what is a conscious leader? Conscious leadership is quite a buzzword, quite right at the moment in organizational circles. But what is a conscious leader? And essentially, simply put, a conscious leader is someone who has achieved self-awareness, who has worked on themselves, and is leading with conscious awareness, and is able to inspire and engage others. And some of the qualities we're going to cover, but just broadly speaking, some of the qualities of a conscious leader would be certainly, as we've already mentioned, self-awareness, but also be able to engage their staff or their team or their family in a win-win situation. They understand that everything is learning. So mistakes, while we don't encourage mistakes, and certainly mistakes that might cost us a lot of money, the only way we learn is through mistakes. Hi, Barbara. Thanks for joining us. So everything is learning. Any situation that we're confronted with, we wouldn't learn without adversity. So it's essentially learning through our mistakes and learning through failures. So as long as we don't make the same mistake twice, we are moving forward and at least gaining in wisdom or knowledge. And then they are able to reconcile differences. As I said, they're able to work with diversity. They can bring teams together. They can pull people together because they understand people. And the only reason they understand others is because they've learned and done a lot of personal growth on themselves. And hopefully they've been through some sort of a coaching process or at least done therapy. I'm not sure if many people know, I don't know how many, certainly in my master's year, in my psychology degree, they recommended we all go for therapy. And I spent about a year and a half working with another psychologist, ensuring that I could at least try and access as much of my shadow side as possible and integrate it so I could become more whole. Hi, Rain. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And then lastly, they are pioneers. They're visionary leaders. They are able to take the team forward. They're not caught up in the past. They're not stuck in working through old situations and using the same old. They're able to reinvent the company, they're able to reinvent themselves, and they're able to renew. As I said many times, they're able to come with a beginner's mind rather than the mind of an expert, okay, which ends up being stuck or mired in past or their own perceived wisdom, let's call it. So today we're going to be touching on 4 aspects of a mindful leader, or leadership and mindfulness. And those 4 aspects are resilience. We've touched on this word before. Resilience, focus, creativity, and compassion. We'll touch on these 4 areas across the course of this morning's chat. All right, so let's start with that first slide. And it says, leaders who are mindful tend to be much more effective in understanding and relating to others and motivating them towards shared goals. This we have now already covered in my preamble. So I'm going to scroll down the other side there. All right, so the first slide speaks about that a leader, the more we practice mindfulness, we've touched on this as a sort of leading into every one of these segments that we've done, every one of these sessions. The more we practice mindfulness helps one become a better leader, because that same leadership or modeling of the same leadership and modeling of mindfulness in your own life is going to be able to act as a role model, so to speak, again, for your staff or your family. So you'd lead by example. People like to look up to someone that's perceived as an authority figure, and then to mirror that. So if you're mirroring bad behavior and not conscious behavior or unconscious behavior, your staff will be mirroring the same, or so would your family members. So it's very important to model conscious behavior or being more awake. And we've been through all these things like being more open, being more accepting, being able to slow down, take a back step from it, disengage from your thinking streams. So this is extremely important. So as I said, this is going to help with many things, and not only everything, but builds on another. That's what this whole course we've been building one onto the other. So the more mindful you are, the more we're able to be creative, because without mindfulness, everything shuts down. So we're able to focus better. We can become more creative. And we also, mindfulness teaches you compassion. We start to understand others a lot better. Okay. So the first and most important aspect of dealing with adversity is certainly this idea of resilience or mental resilience. And if I'm not sure, I think we have touched on it in our sessions, but the word VUCA, as I said, it's not the Xhosa word VUCA, which means awake in any way, which sort of has does resonate with what we're trying to achieve with this series. But this is VUCA. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and ambiguous. Now, certainly already in America and the United States Military Academy, they're teaching people this, and West Point even has brought mindfulness in. Mindfulness is being brought in across the world to cope with exactly what we're having to deal with now, even with this COVID, the lockdown. It's extremely volatile situation. It is uncertain. We don't know how long this lockdown is going to last. It is chaotic. No one has exact answers, and we won't know answers until a year and a half's time. And ambiguous because, as I said, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So we're in quite a flux situation right now, quite a dynamic situation, which can pretty much go either way. So if we're not going to be flexible through this situation, we're going to really struggle. Hi, Sean. Hi, Sonia. Hi, Leonie. Thanks for checking in. Just trying to move across so I can scroll down and see some other names that are popping up there. So how do we become resilient? So it's extremely important to bring, or we spoke a little bit about developing your social networks yesterday, I think it was. So we have to create our social networks. This is one way to build resilience. And these social networks don't just go in one direction. That's a two-way street. And the more you help others, the more so your bridge gets built between that person. So as you're available and open and accepting and helpful to others, that person would immediately start doing the same for yourself. And this sort of network develops your resilience or your ability to certainly cope with a bigger situation if there's a support structure around you or a support network. Another way is, how do we approach crises? It's important, and I think I've been sharing certainly on my Facebook page, to remain calm through this COVID. As much as it's easy to be prone to panic in this situation, panicking is not going to help, because remember, panicking raises your energy and your arousal levels, and that narrows your focus. So it's extremely important to be calm in a crisis situation such as now, and to have it, to certainly look at an immediate term view and a long-term view. So we have to prepare for the worst. I get that. As much as frustrating as it is, we have to have a long-term view as well as a short-term view. And it's extremely important, because someone that's mentally resilient or a mindful leader or a conscious leader would be able to put a much bigger perspective on it rather than being right up against the coalface. Then also, once they've made a decision, a conscious leader is able to act decisively, take a decision, rather than sitting on the fence and not making a decision because they're scared to make the wrong decision. You have to make a decision, take action, and then decide at that stage if there's something that needs to be addressed, then we can move it in another direction. And then also, of course, practicing self-maintenance. We've spoken about this countless times. I just spoke with a doctor this morning on the phone before this talk to say how worried I am that people need to be looking after their mental health right now. But in order to develop mental resilience, we have to be practicing self-maintenance, i.e. self-care, self-compassion. And we'll talk a bit about compassion just now. But we have to be exercising. We should be meditating in whatever way, and whether that's your prayer sessions, your contemplation sessions, and then relaxing. So through reading a book, watching a movie, gardening, baking. I see a lot of people are baking. Some people are even brewing their own alcohol now. So all of these ways would be ways of relaxing. And just to repeat, which we may or may not have covered right in the beginning of this 3 weeks back, the opposite of the stress response is the relaxation response. So while exercise is great to go with stress response, exercise also higher your blood pressure and higher your heart rate, increases your breathing. So you want to be doing some sort of a relaxation exercise, which is the opposite, or a meditative exercise. So anything like yoga or mindfulness training, any of this kind of stuff, which slows down your breathing, slows down your heart rate, this is what's important, because it balances out that. So exercise plus the meditation is important. So as I said, we call that the relaxation response. So these are all steps that will take you in the direction of mental resilience and allow you to cope better with adversity. And together with resilience comes this word hardiness. And hardiness is the ability to withstand adversity. And some of us want to just roll over and play dead. Other guys come up and tackle the obstacles in our way. But humanity is amazing. We've been through world wars. We've been through all sorts of dramas. And we'll get through this as well, because we are able to show extreme amounts of mental resilience. And for some of us, it's only when we look back. But for others of us, we can be doing it right now and know that we have that power. Then focus. Focus is we've touched on this when we first did that mindfulness in the course 2 of this series. focus is extremely important. Mindfulness teaches you focus, and it allows you to bring your attention to focus on something in a neutral and accepting way, and sort of in a non-judgmental way. And this helps us to decide upon what to focus, because the more we take a leadership role, I said to someone the other day on the phone, I was having a discussion, I said, at my ripe old age, sometimes we want to throw our hands up and go, we are the parents, we are someone to come and save us from all this drama. Someone I can go and say, can you please handle this, because I don't know what to do right now. And so we are confronted as leaders, once we're in that position of authority, to have to deal with situations, and we have to be able to make decisions. And then we have to prioritize and decide what should I focus on, and what's more important than the other. So certainly mindfulness in leadership helps one to decide what is important to focus on. And as we mentioned, if you don't have a value system in place, if you haven't decided what my values are, and this is not moral values, I keep repeating, this is not moral values, but what is important for me? What am I trying to achieve here? And I'm going to share just now my own company mission statement, if you'll give me the floor just to be a bit self-indulgent for a moment as an example. But if you don't know what your values are, you cannot even move in any direction. A company once asked me, a sports team once asked me to come and talk to them on goal setting one morning over breakfast. And it sounded so dead and flat, goal setting. And it's almost like stress management, goal setting, time management. And I said to the CEO of this company that, have you worked on a set of values for your team yet? And he went, no, I don't understand that. We must just do a talk on goal setting. I said, you cannot set goals unless you know what your values are. So unless you know what it is that you're wanting to achieve, don't even waste your time setting goals, because your goals are going to be going in one direction and your value system is in another direction. So when we are doing focusing on when mindfulness focus is important for a leader, you need to know, what is my company mission statement if you're a leader in a company? But even if you are a leader in a company, what is your personal mission statement? What is it that you are trying to achieve? Of course, there's a broad organizational goal. And it's the same when people come to me for coaching. We have personal goals, and then we have the organizational goal. And we try and marry those two personal goals and the organizational goals with that particular client. So I'm just going to, in order to sort of try and elucidate what I'm explaining, I'm going to run you through my company, which is my coaching company's name. And if you just, as I said, I don't want this to sound like a sales pitch. It's not. I just want to try and explain it. In my master's year, I did my treatise on psychophortology, which is about the science of mental strengths. So I developed this name called Fortogen 15 years ago. And Fortogen stands for Fort, which is fortology, which is the science of mental strengths, and Gen stands for Genesis, or the development of. So it's a development of mental strengths. And then I thought I needed if you can't say a slagspreuk, a tagline, and this building strengths and nurturing genius. To build strengths and nurturing genius. Then I took a diamond shape, because I like the diamond shape, because a diamond is a really strong mineral, and it's one of the hardest minerals, and it's made of carbon, and so are human beings. Human beings are made of carbon. And then I thought, what about our potential? And I put the infinity symbol in the middle of that, because our potential is infinite if we get rid of our limiting beliefs. So this was just trying to decide a name for my small company. It's a small business, only 2 or 3 of us in the business. But I do a lot of work, as I said, with coaching and developing and building people and building their strengths. And it gave me something to focus around. Then I had to decide on a mission statement. And this is, what do I want to achieve with this business? So once we know what we want to achieve, and when I was looking back at this together with my vision, I was going through this with the team about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was quite surprised that 14 years ago, I am now really sitting in the middle of doing this with people, and I'm feeling so much, what's the word I'm looking for, resonance with it. I'm feeling so self-satisfied that I'm achieving what I set out 14 or 15 years ago to do, and I'm currently doing it now. So my mission statement said, your mission statement says, what do I want to achieve in life? So my mission statement became to facilitate positive growth in our clients through the development of innate strengths, so strengths that they've already got, and then nurturing that latent genius. Latent genius means that we all have this genius lying within our systems, but it's not being tapped into. So I need to go and pull that out of my clients. And then how am I going to do this? And I strive towards doing this to make people optimally functioning human beings across a broad spectrum, like I keep saying, mind, body, and spirit, through a conscious, trying to wake you up, and a continuous process of holistic self-development. So not developing, integral coaching's come out now, which coaches across a number of quadrants. And this is exactly what I decided 15 years ago. This is before I even discovered integral coaching. But so we have to look at the full spectrum: social, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual. So right across all those domains, we have to coach. And it gives me a clear vision. Then the idea is, how do I do this? So when you're looking at your own mission statement, so create your own mission statement, but also say, how am I going to do this? And why do I want to do it? So my vision was to take psychology to the people. I could sit in my practice and wait for psychology to come to me, or people to come to me, or I could go out there and take it to people who are too scared to visit the psychologist. And then to build their values, virtues, and strengths, to ignite that latent energy, to make sure that latent energy is converted into moving energy or kinetic energy, and to make sure it goes in a positive direction. Because as with swing emotions, that energy can go in a negative direction as well. Like I said, anxiety, fear, frustration can move you in the direction of disappointment, depression, or dejection, even in a worst case scenario, despair. And then to facilitate goal achievement, to change people's perceptions, to make you become optimally human functioning people, and to free people's minds, and so that they can become self-realized, and after self-realization, self-actualization. Without this mission and vision, myself, you that's listening to this talk, will not know which direction you need to take yourself or your business. So it's extremely important to do that. I work at a number of companies, and when you ask them what is the mission statement of the company that you work for, and this might even be the CEOs, they go, oh, they can't say it off the top of their head because it's in a drawer somewhere, and it's not right at the forefront of their vision and their focus. And it's extremely important that leaders know this, and everyone in their team around them knows what the vision statement is. And you could have one for your family, you could have one for your team, like I said, and they're all going to be different because everyone's going to have different value systems. Then compassion. Mindfulness certainly teaches compassion, not only for other people, but certainly for ourselves. And we will never be able to be compassionate for other people unless we are compassionate for ourselves. So unless we give ourselves time to take a bath, and I'll smile again about that because we spoke at length about taking a bath, and giving ourselves permission to sit and do nothing. We don't always have to be active. Everything we do doesn't have to be productive. But I'm sure we've got all these words in our head that says, don't be lazy, it's too lazy to sit still. But we have to be self-compassionate, and then a mindful leader is someone who is understanding their people, understanding their team, realizing they're all diverse, is quite able to. A good tip, if you want to be a conscious leader, certainly from the position of compassion, is to imagine that your thoughts are transparent. That if someone could really see what you were thinking, would you be thinking what you're thinking? And the answer is probably not. So those kind of thoughts, those judgmental thoughts that are floating around your brain, just imagine how it would be if they were written across your forehead, or coming like a ticker parade going past the top of your head, and everyone could see what you were thinking when you were talking to people. That might get you to stop those thoughts immediately and to be less judgmental and to have more of a beginner's mind in your interactions with people. And then, of course, another thing that these mindful leaders do is they're a lot more neutral and accepting. And as I said, I'm repeating myself now about the judgmental side, but they are mindful of any negativity, and then they turn that into something that's positive and have a much better or a more positive outlook in their lives. Mindfulness certainly contributes to creativity. Like I said, the minute our emotions are aroused, everything shuts down. So our creativity shuts down. Again, I'm talking at infinitum about companies that I've worked with that operate in panic mode or in crisis mode. And many of them will say, but this is just how we operate. But it's not the case. Their managers are running around like chickens without heads. You cannot, in a crisis mode, you cannot be working on a planned and structured solutions to your problems. Everything's going to be crisis management. And when you are responding like that, all your responses are going to be very short-term responses and not long-term responses. And you're never going to get out of this crisis management mode. So in order to become creative, we have to step back, move a lot out of this rigid environment, because when a leader is quite domineering and operating in this panic mode, certainly creativity will be stifled, and the whole group starts to think just like that leader. There's a wonderful, I forget the lady's name now, she's a professor from the UK. She's got a talk on YouTube called Speaking Truth to Power. If you've got a chance, I would strongly recommend you go and view that video. It's a short 10-minute, I think it's a TED Talk, 10 to 15-minute video on speaking truth to power. And it speaks about how as a leader, and this again, I'm repeating, you could be the father or the mother in a family, you could be a leader in your team. People are scared to speak to you because you don't realize how much power you put over them, and then people don't want to tell them your truth. And when that happens, like I said, creativity is totally stifled. That company is certainly on a walking a short gangplank to destruction, because if the group starts thinking just like the CEO, there's going to be problems there, because groupthink is not good. You need dissenting voices. I always tell my guys I'm coaching that they should have respectful dissenting voices. So be respectful in your dissent. And then with the CEO, I'll explain that I'm encouraging your staff to challenge you, because if they don't, the company is not going to have be creative at all. So it's important to develop creativity, and we can only do that if we, again, step into our centers and step into a more conscious role. Then for our case study today, this lady Wendy had just been promoted to a supervisor position. And of course, her and her friend Angela had been friends for ages. They'd been friends for many years. But then just after Wendy's promotion, Angela began showing up late for work on a regular basis. And of course, initially, Wendy thought that this might be because Angela was now upset that Wendy had been promoted above her. But then she thought, no, maybe there's other reasons. So perhaps I shouldn't just do this. And I still want to be friends with Angela. So I need to find out what's going on. I don't think it could be. So she decides to have drinks with Angela, and decides to just clear the air, because she wanted to remain friends with Angela as well as become the leader, and wasn't going to not become a leader just because of her friendship with Angela. So she needed to get rid of the elephant in the room. So she invited Angela out for drinks, and they had a good chat. And she said that if Angela was worried about her being a leader, they would address it and perhaps move her into a different team if it was going to be a problem, because it might have affected their friendship. And if that wasn't the case, and there were other reasons for Angela showing up late for work, she could address those as well and still maintain her friendship. So it's extremely important not to jump to assumptions, but to deal with it as a conscious leader, and give the other person a chance to speak out. So thank you for joining me. Again, feel free to put your comments down in the taper. Please check in and say, how's it if you're there? Share my video if you think it's great and someone can benefit from it. Thank you, and thanks for joining me, and we will chat tomorrow morning. Take care.